It's a little bit like there's like almost a mystique to how technology works that makes us think that it's all just
Magic. Yeah.
yeah, essentially. Um,
Yeah.
but we forget that
Yep.
there are a lot of humans involved in you clicking a button.
Hello and welcome to Thinking Out Loud. I'm your co-host Cameron McAllister.
And I'm your co-host Nathan Rittenhouse.
Nathan, Elon's Musk is all over Twitter and people don't like it.
Oh man, you are.
I tried to say it with a straight face.
Oh, dad joke. There you go. That's
Yeah.
great. Okay. Well, we do need to talk about tech companies though, so we may as well enter into the
The fray,
aroma of the conversation in
the
that way.
aroma. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think so massive exodus if the behind the scenes conversations with reporters are to be believed at Twitter right now because of and I the precise quote is eluding me, the something radically hardcore
Yeah,
ultimatum.
extremely hardcore. I just read it the other day.
Extremely hardcore. Yeah,
Extremely
something like
hardcore, I
that.
think.
Yeah, ultimatum imposed by Elon Musk on Twitter. So that's but of course Twitter is not it's distinct in it's the takeover that's happening right now, but it's not an isolated case of layoffs or departures at tech companies. You have Amazon in that mix. You have Lyft. You have, of course, Meta with I think
Coinbase,
Meta. It might
Netflix.
be more.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think Meta might be
Am
more now, but it was
Did
the
we say
figure I had was
Amazon?
11,000. I said Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So
Well, so
major shakeups in the tech world.
yeah, well, so here's what makes it uncertain for me to know what to do with the Twitter one exactly, because so if you look at so here's the macro system as far as I've been able to read and understand this, is that from well, we can even go back 10 years. So let's say 2012, if you look at a line of the rate of growth of people moving their business online, that has been steady and upward in a nice trajectory. And any stocks or investments or anything that have a tech company associated with it, those have all been kind of bearing the brunt of a lot of the economic growth of our country are have been in those sectors, in the technology sector. So imagine in your mind a line that is going up at a very nice, steady, linear increase year by year until you get
Hmm.
to and then like a slight like it's just I mean, just think about how much has changed in the last 10 years of what you can do online. However, then you hit the pandemic in 2020 and almost everybody goes online. And so that upward curve then spikes to a steeper angle of acceleration. So if you're envisioning this in your mind, you have a linear graph curve going up and then it spikes up like for the last 2 years as everybody is online all the time, streaming, Zoom, Google, like all of those things have been happening. So what happened is that the tech CEOs looked at that last 2-year trajectory and said, okay, if we spread this out into the future at this rate, we're going to need a lot of employees. So when e-commerce booms, Amazon is promising 2-day shipping and they need to and everybody's buying stuff online, they have to hire thousands and thousands of employees to meet that demand. However, what they got wrong, and I'm not just saying Amazon here, but this is why you see like all tech CEOs saying things like, I'm sorry, is because they miscalculated the future of that demand. And so they hired workers as if that rate spike was going to increase, but it actually plateaued because COVID was over. People went back to services instead of goods. Now people are spending their money going out to the water park or restaurants or whatever, and
Hmm.
people turn. So what's interesting is that if you look at Amazon laying off 11,000 people, that layoff still doesn't get them lower than where they were at the beginning of the pandemic. They're actually still higher than where they were in 2020. And so it's wild for us to think of a company the size that you could lay off 11,000 workers potentially and still be a growing company.
Hmm.
And so if you look at their overall trajectory, it's still positive and growing. It's just that the rate of growth massively changed back into the rate of growth, which was still good pre-pandemic. And so these massive tech sector layoffs on a macroeconomic scale are just a return to the rate of growth pre-pandemic. Does that make sense? It's hard to describe a graph in your mind, but so some of that's what the reason that that little aside was important there is some of that's hard for me to know how much of that is like a macroeconomics thing that Twitter is going through. That's the same as every other tech industry and company, and how much of this is uniquely. I mean, Elon Musk has a way of making everything unique, and he provides the
Mhm.
perfect social media trampoline for everybody to jump on. So that's why I can't quite figure it out just yet. But I mean, so his might be a special case. But anyway, there's a little context on the
Yeah.
macroeconomic scale.
And I think the part of the Twitter story that's really captivating the public imagination doesn't so much concern Twitter. Twitter is, for better or for worse, a unique social media platform, and it does have its distinct advantages. But I think Twitter is a little bit more niche in terms
Mhm.
of its appeal. It always has been. I think what's really interesting to people here is Elon Musk, who is a major figure, and he really does conform to a typical American vision of success. He is a person who has been massively successful financially, of course, being one of the I mean, the one of the wealthiest people on the planet. Is he the wealthiest? Is he the
Yeah, it
wealthiest
goes
still?
back and forth. We'll see how this all works out with,
It's neck and neck.
I think there's a lawsuit about his compensation at Tesla and then this kind of yeah, so I think he'll be alright.
That's right. Right. He's doing okay. But so he has so there's this American vision of success that equates success often with achievement and particularly with financial achievement. So he's there. And then there's this notion that somebody who has attained that level of success, and again, I'm spelling out a tacit philosophy. I always say this. This is not something that people usually work out in explicit terms. When you say it explicitly, it sounds silly.
You would be
But the
terrible at
assumption
writing
seems to be,
T-shirts, Cameron. I
oh, I
mean,
would.
yeah.
I so would. But yeah, I just remember when I was a teenager wandering into Hot Topic because I was one of those kids, seeing a t-shirt that said "Sanity is the playground of the unimaginative," and at the time, I thought that was wow, that's profound. I need that shirt. Oh, teenage Cameron. Anywho, I think people look at somebody like an Elon Musk and they think, well, this person is successful, so they can do whatever they turn their hand to. If they want to run for president, they should run for president. I mean, we there is a disturbing track record lately of looking at people who are celebrities and massively successful in a certain American sense of that word, and thinking, oh wow, you need a political platform now. But of course, that success doesn't necessarily translate to every single field. And part of what's really interesting here is watching the tension erupt between Elon Musk, who thinks very much like an engineer in his just day to day operations, and a team of people who are highly creative. Now, those things aren't necessarily totally distinct. Of course, you need both, but there's this increasing tension in a lot of these social media companies and tech companies because I mean, the real push is to be marketable and to basically make investors happy and go in that direction on the one hand. But then there are people who want to who are in it for they want to see new imaginative possibilities. And I think you have those two things coming to a head there.
Well,
The notion that yeah.
yeah, but there's a separate way in which the engineering and tech collision might be playing out here. So this is all highly Nathan Rittenhouse speculative, but look at how tech look at how engineers succeed. So if you look at Tesla, SpaceX, now I'm not like a Elon Musk is can walk on water kind of guy. I think he has some seriously creepy and messed up ideas. However, what you have to think through is how many Tesla prototypes were there that didn't work before Tesla became a thing? How many rockets has Elon Musk built that exploded or didn't work before he built the largest private fleet of rockets, in the history of humanity? And so he is very much approaches things like, ah, yeah, you got to blow some stuff up and stuff will burn, and like that's all part of the growth experimentation phase.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
wonder if somebody like him could come in, look at what's happening at Twitter, perfectly expect it, and think this is just fine because this is how progress is made. You disrupt things, And if you want to do something unique
Yep.
that's literally going to end up going into orbit, you have to shake things up from the bottom and totally rewrite the story and start over. So that would be an engineering mind coming into this. I think a social media platform, you have thousands of people like, no, I don't want to work extremely hardcore for your experimentation and perhaps be the guinea pig in whatever blows up next. So there you have it. There's another way of thinking about it.
Yeah, as I understand it, engineers, I mean, if you boil it down, they solve problems. And I think Elon Musk does seem to look at Twitter as a problem right now to be solved.
Well, no, you know the joke of engineers is, they look at something and if it's broken, they fix it. And they look at something and if it's not broken, they fix it. So
Yeah.
so there's
Yeah.
there's that sort of um mentality of like, hey, this model's working. Well, let's do it differently or try to find a more efficient way to do it. So I don't know. Maybe that's some of what's going on here.
All right. So if I may introduce another angle here into into the discussion. So I think we mentioned this in one of the previous podcasts, but another factor here is a growing sense of tech fatigue that's
Mm,
happening
mhm.
on the part of users. And I think in the oncoming years, let me just try to briefly play the role of tech prophet, a role I'm completely unsuited to play at
I
all. So
can't
just
wait to
take it
hear
with a grain
this.
of salt.
I can't wait to hear this.
Well, and I'm actually not going to say anything very radical or drastic. So
Ah,
it's
come on,
not
go
really
for it.
being a
Tell us how
prophet.
you really feel.
It's more like me riding on the coattails of others. But no, I think what is essentially you have happening here is younger people, and I mean, as younger people come of age, more and more people are going to be moving away from social media platforms. I think you have a pretty big mass exodus, not on the part of employees, but on the part of users coming up here soon.
Oh,
And
see, I hope that's true, but I don't know. Are the numbers there?
no, so again, this is me also operating off of intuition here a little bit and some of the anecdotes of conversations I've had. No, but there does seem to be, well, first of all, let me get a little evidential here to try to back this theory up. There's a growing body of evidence. I mean, massive research and primarily in the field of psychology actually on how incredibly harmful, you know, social media usage is, especially if you're very online, as is sometimes said. If this is a huge part of your day every day, and it's a huge part of your habits, there's a growing body of evidence that this is detrimental to people psychologically, particularly young people. So, as that knowledge, it takes a while for so you have cutting edge research, right? And that takes a while to basically that's in the limited largely to academic spheres. It takes a while for that to disseminate to the general public. It goes faster nowadays because of the way information spreads, but it still takes a
Ah,
while. It takes
y
time to set in.
y yeah, but so okay, so I'm
I
trying
think
to
that's
decide if
setting
there are
in.
2 things. So I'm trying to decide, okay, I have 2 conflicting thoughts in my mind. One to validate what you said. The other is like, we know that meth and fentanyl is not good for your well-being,
Oh, sure,
and
sure. Yeah, no,
and
people.
there's an increased usage there. So the correlation
No, no.
between, like,
So I
this
don't
is
want to
not good
run.
for, but on the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
hand,
No, I don't
let
wanna
me
run roughshod over human complexity. Yeah, but
but well, no, but so all right, I just say that only sort of flippantly, but no, I used to give this talk called Smartphone Smart Faith, and it was wild, like how many times if I asked a group of students, like, and we're talking younger here in like the 15 to 20 category, how many of you in the last month have deleted an app or something from your phone to free up more, and it turned into something that sounded like an AA meeting. Hi, I'm Susie. I deleted Facebook from my phone and it's been the best thing that I've ever done.
mhm.
That that's real. I mean, so I have anecdotal support for, I think, largely what you're saying there, to be a real felt thing. And once the desire is there, then the action will probably follow. It's just that there probably will be a lag in that. So I'm affirming
Oh,
what
I
you're
think a
saying.
serious No, I think there'll be a serious lag, and I think absolutely, I mean, people but the one place that I go here is the tobacco industry. So and I'm saying this as a former smoker. So talk about I'm a poster child for a person who fully aware of how detrimental the health, this is to your health and still having done it for a while. So it wasn't, my problem wasn't that I needed more information. But that being said, if you look at the trends surrounding smoking and tobacco usage, I mean, a notable dent has been made in recent years, and that's I mean, again, and if you think about how long it's taken, by the way, for this to and I know vaping is a new there's a new surge in vaping and all of that, and human behavior is always I mean, we are motivated by our desires and by our hearts, not by our heads alone. So, I wanna take that into account. But I think there is a growing recognition of the deleterious effects of social media usage, lots of social media usage. I think it's coming to also, and this is probably worse for the social media companies. It's coming to be seen gradually as more and more irrelevant on the by younger people.
Mhm.
Just think about the way younger people look at Facebook, for instance. I
Oh,
think that
yeah,
that is a
that's the thing of the
yeah.
past.
Oh yeah, and that's a picture of that's a picture of a change of the tide, I think.
Ooh, can I tell you a funny story
And
about that?
yeah,
Just
please do.
quickly. So, I think this was in, like, 2016, so this is how far back this goes, in case you're wondering how. Yeah. Anyway, so I was speaking at I think it was a Mennonite church in Pennsylvania, and I was walking in, and there were a bunch of middle school students sitting on a brick wall, and I overheard one of them say, "Of course I don't have Facebook. Facebook is for grandmas." And that
Yeah.
was, like, 6 years ago already, but I was like, "Man, the context of all of this just made that,
That's the
statement so funny to me,"
Oh, yeah.
but it's so true also.
Well, that's the death knell of Facebook, by the way, because that's a soundbite. Facebook is for grandmas, and once that sentiment is, widely dispersed, I mean, that basically signifies something has to change or some kind of an ending there. But I think on an existential level, there's a growing recognition that we need to return to more holistic habits and we need to lean more into our communities and into where we live. There's a growing
Mhm.
there's a growing emphasis among younger people, a lot of younger educated people on basically leaning into your community, being a part of your community and contributing to it and being
Well,
more involved in local politics, for
yeah, well,
instance. I mean,
and the other thing that
all of
happened
that. Yeah.
is COVID in the food system. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a huge leader on that of people starting to think about, like, where does my food come from? What does it mean to support a local
Yep.
farmer? How do why
Mhm.
am I getting my carrot from 15 states
Right.
away? That those types of questions are starting to be forced to be asked, and people are looking for more holistic answers, and
Well,
are
and the way I
willing.
like the way
Yeah.
well, you put it well the other day in our conversation where you said a sort of reverse globalization seems to be happening.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, right. So, I mean, answer this question: how many hundred Facebook friends would you be willing to trade for a real friend?
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so the relocalization of a lot of things, I think, is part of the future, um, that will disrupt and so the other so yeah, all right. So there's two sides of this. One is that I think as people mature, maybe, or look at the world and they recognize that everything that technology has promised hasn't turned to gold. There's that element, but the tech industry is continuing to innovate, and I mean, part of the reason of the decline of a lot of tech industries is also because TikTok stole their viewers. And so there's always
Mhm.
some
Yeah,
new
sure.
kid on the block to come and steal the attention time of something else. So it's a bit of a both and there. But
It
can I
is.
ask, yeah, I want to
Yeah.
ask you a question that you know how we used to talk about FOMO, fear of
Oh,
missing
yeah.
out? Um and that's a real thing, like, people are afraid of missing out, and I talked about, like, limiting some of my technical use because I had a fear of missing out on, like, things that are happening locally, or
Mhm.
in my household, um, so there's that. I heard a new one, FOBO. Have you heard of FOBO yet?
No.
So,
No.
I hadn't either. I was talking to a campus ministry leader a week or 2 ago, and he said FOBO is the fear of a better option,
Mm.
and so people don't commit to things because they're always waiting for the next best thing. And you have to keep yourself available for what might happen next. And I thought, "Ah, that's an interesting,
Yeah.
yeah, I can see it."
That describes something that's been around for a while. I mean, people used to that's why people kept channel surfing. and that's why we
Mhm.
can't pick an option on streaming service, and that's why we can't a lot of people are terrified of actually getting into a serious and committed relationship.
Yeah, because
So
there might be something
it's a
better.
picture. Yeah, there might be something better. It's a picture of that inner restlessness, but I think people are also getting tired of this constant restlessness. And I think there's growing recognition as well that always being in that mindset of looking for a better option and always being on social media in a sense, scrolling, waiting for something to titillate you or excite you or to make, give you some sort of a rush, a kick of some kind, that is a tremendous waste of your time and your energy, and that you also find yourself often getting worked up and angry and pulled into stuff that is really a huge drain on your mind. I mean, your focus, I mean, we've talked a lot about the spiritual value of focus, particularly in our own day and age. Your focus, you only have so much of it, right? And you can absolutely drain your tank, so to speak. And a lot of us are, I think there's a growing recognition that we're devoting so much mental energy, so much time to stuff that really doesn't matter, that's fleeting, when there are numerous items and people around us who do need us, who really could use our attention and our help and our resources.
So,
So
what should you
as that
be
sinks in, yeah.
so what should you be doing instead of listening to this podcast? Well,
Right.
hopefully you can do something productive while listening to this podcast, but anyway, this is a podcast where we tell you to listen to fewer podcasts. How's that for PR nightmare?
Well, in a
But
sense, though, I mean, one of the biggest compliments I ever got was, "Yeah, you helped me clean the bathroom the other day with the podcast."
yeah, there you go. Okay, so I take full responsibility for getting us way off topic. Back around to Twitter then. Um,
Background to
I
what? Just kidding.
back yeah, yeah, yeah. So so
Just
so
kidding.
here's why I'm not ready to write Twitter off just yet as like, "Oh, it's all imploding." Um, A, it still has massive brand recognition, and that's valuable.
Oh, yeah.
And it does still have some pretty savvy people. Um, and I also think, maybe this is just personal, that there are a lot of companies who have a lot of people that they don't need. Um,
Hmm.
so that could also be true too. So it's a little bit too soon for me to like call the to referee from the sideline and be like, "Oh, this is good or bad." Uh, I mean, of course, everybody who's leaving is going to see it as
Sure.
bad, and the people who are making the cuts are going to see it as good, and time might tell. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't proper ways to do things when hard decisions need to be made. That's for sure. But anyway, I'm kind of seeing it
No,
as
and I
a
think
type of a thing. Yeah.
that's a wise way to look at it. I mean, another scenario I think that many people will probably be recalling in all of this is when Steve Jobs was brought back on board on Apple. And the first thing that he did was he slashed thousands of jobs because at that and now this is not strictly comparable, this is a different story, but Apple had basically massive mission creep, and they had all sorts of, I mean, they had so many projects in development, so many different things that they were working on. They'd lost focus of what they actually did. And at the time, their focus was really on personal computers. And so
Hmm.
Jobs said, "We're getting rid of all of these departments, all these different projects, and we're going to whittle it down to maybe, I think it was something like three or four. And we're going to concentrate all our efforts there and do it really well." So there is of course, there's a precedent for somebody coming into a company where there has been, yeah, some basically some confusion has entered in or just a lack of clarity. And, really, I mean, it's tough because you're talking about people's livelihoods and people's lives. But I think there's still, yeah, it's unclear just what will emerge on the other side of this. And
Okay.
I'm not a tech person at
Mhm.
all, so this is, yeah, definitely not my field.
Well, okay. So here's an interesting thing that is relevant to this. So Twitter wants to moderate online content. I guess so. So let me see if I can get this out right. So much of what we think is is still digital is still human in the sense that people have to moderate the content. You have to pay people to moderate the content of what's on Twitter or Facebook or anything else. When you order something on Amazon, yeah, it's automated to a certain degree, but there are still people involved behind the scenes in doing that. When you store something in the cloud, we all know this, it doesn't actually go to a cloud. It goes to a server and pick your
Mhm.
spot that rents a massive warehouse and chills it down to store all of your data information. There are technicians and people that work there. Like, there's a high human toll behind your button click. And so it's kind of an interesting something about the interface and the way it's set up. We still don't see the human element of the process because we just assume. I think it's a little bit like there's like a almost a mystique to how technology works that makes us think that it's all just
Magic.
Ma
Yeah.
yeah, essentially,
Yeah.
but we forget that
Yep.
there are a lot of humans involved in you clicking a button, that are behind the scenes, and
Mhm.
so in some ways, like, yeah, it's techy and it's cool, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a real human element to everything behind the scenes. So, yeah, I mean, Twitter will be categorically different if you have fewer people doing their stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. I just felt like it was important to remind myself every once in a while that you're still dealing with humans.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think we do have sometimes a magical view of our our technology, and it is helpful to get grounded once again. And these stories actually are a reminder of the persons who are behind the scenes here, and what happens when there are even something as simple as a major shift in trends, right? All of that has is can be spelled out in serious consequences for persons behind the scenes, and it's just a helpful piece of perspective here.
Well, so
But yeah, I'm not sure I have too much more to add here.
so here's what I would add. I'm speaking to myself here, and maybe this is good for other people. Is that I think if you look at digital and technological platforms, they're fine places to have a presence. They're good tools to use. They are lousy places to put all of the eggs of your identity into. And so
Mhm.
if your identity is based off of this digital and technological persona and there's a disruption in that sector, that's going to be far more far more of a disruption to you as a person, as an individual, than it really should be. So I think it's helpful to have these conversations of things that we kind of almost take for granted as large tech companies that are always growing and doing well, and they're the forerunners of innovation and they make our lives so much better and all these. Yeah, to a degree. But let's be very cautious about the amount of resources that we're taking and investing into those, and to be thinking about what does real community actually look like. And this is a drum that we're always beating, but I think whenever we see these moments of disruption, it's a good reminder, it's a good warning for us for the future to not overly invest who we are, our community, our friendships, and dare I say even in our church and spiritual formation, into sectors that go beyond um, face-to-face human interaction. And so I just have a sense there that in some ways I think there are a lot of people who are striving to live that way and almost are happy to see this being shaken up as a reminder of how humanity actually works. So I'm torn in between of like it's too soon to tell really, but it's soon enough to say that it is not a great place to invest all that you are. um, and we know that we just have to be subtly reminded of it over and over again. So anyway, you've been listening to Thinking Out Loud, podcast where we think out loud about current events. Cameron makes jokes and Christian hope.
Thanks for listening to Thinking Out Loud. If you'd like to learn more about what we do, book Nathan or Cameron, or if you'd like to support us financially, whether through a one-time donation or on a monthly basis, you can do so on the donate page at www.toltogether.com. That's toltogether.com. And please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and sharing this content with your friends. It really does help.